Babylon. An ancient historical city dating back to the Mesopotamian civilization, it is the capital of the Babylonian Empire. Where its ruins are found in the modern state of Iraq between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Babylon is located 94 kilometers southwest of Baghdad. And it is considered one of the most influential and famous cities in history, and it was known as a leading city. It was mentioned in many places in the Bible, and it gained its wide fame from its walls and wonderfully decorated buildings. And its position as a base for learning and culture. The city was also known for shaping the rules of law that preceded the law of Moses. Today, Babylon is considered one of the governorates of the Republic of Iraq. And it is located in the central part of it, and its total area is 5,603 square kilometers. Naming Babylon. The name of the city, Babylon, goes back to the Akkadian language, as it is derived from Bav-il or Bav-ilim, meaning the gate of the god or gods, and this name came from the Latin language. As for Babel, it is the Hebrew name for it, which was mentioned in the Bible in the sense of confusion, where the word was used to refer to the state of confusion caused by the atheism of the people of the city. History of Babylon city building. The history of the construction of the city of Babylon dates back to before the rule of King Sargon of Akkad, who ruled between the years 2334 to 2279 BC, and claimed that he built temples in the city. Due to the high water level of the river, all the ancient monuments of the town were flooded with water, and what appears today in the city of Babylon dates back to 1,000 years after the construction of the town, and thus the known history of the city dates back to King Hammurabi, who ruled Babylon between the years 1792 to 1750 BC after his inheritance to the throne on behalf of his father, King Senmobilit. The reign of King Hammurabi. King Hammurabi was able to make the city of Babylon one of the most powerful and influential cities in Mesopotamia. So he established the Code of Hammurabi that preserved security and peace in the city, expanded its walls, and supervised huge works that included temples and canals, and he was a first-class diplomat, so he was able to unify the civilization of Mesopotamia under the rule of the city of Babylon, which occupied a great position at this time, and Hammurabi called it the country of Babylon. After the death of King Hammurabi, the Babylonian Empire disintegrated, and the city of Babylon weakened. And the Hittites occupied it in 1595 BC, then the Kassites occupied it and called it Karan Dunyash. Then the Assyrians took control of the region. Took extreme measures in the city, where he stormed it forcefully and destroyed the monuments, which prompted his sons to assassinate him shortly after his rule. And after him, his son Esarhaddon came to power, built the city again, and restored its glory to it. After that, a revolution took place in the city against Ashurbanipal, the king of Nineveh, who besieged the city and defeated it, but did not harm her to a great extent, as his goal was to rid Babylon of the evil spirits that he believed caused so much trouble. The reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. After the fall of the Assyrian state, a Chaldean king called Nabopolassar came to power, and with his wisdom, he was able to build the new Babylonian Empire, and his son King Nebuchadnezzar II followed him, who ruled between the years 604 to 561 BC, and he restored the city and expanded it to an area of 900 hectares, and built the most beautiful statues and structures in the Mesopotamian civilization. The city was mentioned in the writings of the ancients with a tone of reverence and awe, and the most prominent of them was Herodotus. King Nebuchadnezzar built the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Ishtar Gate. In the same period, the city witnessed the Babylonian captivity of the Jews, and the Babylonian Talmud was written in it, and the city expanded greatly until it was divided by the Euphrates River into two parts, ancient and modern, and in the center was the temple of the god Marduk, and the large towering ziggurat, and the streets expanded to accommodate the passage of the procession of the statue of the god Marduk on its annual journey from his temple in the city to the temple of the New Year outside the Ishtar Gate. Persian rule. After the death of King Nebuchadnezzar, the new Babylonian kingdom continued to play an important role during the reign of King Nabonid and his heir Belshazzar. And in 539 BC the Babylonian Empire fell into the hands of the Persians led by Cyrus the Great in the Battle of Opis, and the walls of the city were very impregnable. So the Persians diverted the waters of the Euphrates River and they became able to control it. And while the inhabitants of the city were preoccupied with one of the great religious celebrations, the Persians crept across the river under the walls of the city without being noticed and seized it. The city emerged under Persian rule as a center for arts and science, and King Cyrus made it the administrative capital of his empire. The town was famous for being a beacon of advanced science. It is even believed that the first Western philosopher, Thales of Malta, studied in the town and that Pythagoras developed his famous mathematical theory based on a Babylonian model. City fall. After 200 years of Persian rule, the city of Babylon was subject to the rule of Alexander the Great in 331 BC, and he gave great appreciation to the city, and ordered his men not to harm the buildings, and not to harass the population. And after Alexander the Great, the kings of the Alexander sects fought over his kingdom and the city of Babylon in particular, until the inhabitants of the city fled for fear for their lives. And when the Parthian Empire ruled the region in 141 BC, the city was abandoned and forgotten, and it was a relic buried under the soil. Babylon ruins. The current site of the town of Babylon contains a number of prominent antiquities, which were discovered by the excavation campaigns that began with the British researcher Claudius James Rich between the years 1811 AD to 1817 AD, the British archaeologist Austin Henry Layard, 1850 AD. The French Orientalist Fulgence Fresnel, and the German Assyrian specialist Jules Aubert between the years 1852 AD to 1854 AD, and others, and excavations began under the supervision of the German scientist Robert Koldewey for the German Oriental Society in 1899 AD. And these campaigns continued without interruption until 1917 AD. As a result of these campaigns, many ancient monuments were found, including the remains of King Nebuchadnezzar's palace in the northern corner of the city of Babylon, a palace, the Ishtar Gate, the Image Temple, the Asahila Temple, and a residential area east of the Asahila Temple, along with cuneiform inscriptions, statues, surfaces, pottery, and jewelry, and other effects. Babel Tower. One of the most famous historical and religious stories about the city of Babylon is the Tower of Babel, a story mentioned in the book of Genesis. So the story tells that after the prophet Noah and those with him survived the flood, they descended to the city of Babylon, and a mighty person called Nimrod led them and called them to build a tower for fear of their dispersal in the earth, and they wanted this tower to be very high until it reached the sky. And they took this tower as a place to glorify creation instead of Creator, and as a result of their actions, God punished them by dispersing them in the land and dispersing their languages, and from here the origin of the word Babel in the Hebrew language goes back to confusion. Archaeologists recently believe that the tower referred to is the Etemenanke, which is the ziggurat that was the seat of the Nimrods in the city of Babylon. And the name Etemenanke means the temple of the foundation of heaven and earth. The names mentioned in it coincide with the names mentioned in the story, and it is in fact not more than 200 feet long, 60.96 meters. Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Babylon is famous for its hanging gardens, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, where it was in the past one of the 7 wonders of the world, and according to the accounts of the Greek poets. The garden was built during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar around 600 BC near the Euphrates River in Iraq. And it is mentioned that the gardens were built at a height of 75 feet, 22.86 meters, on a huge terrace of bricks that was designed in the form of terraces, and the reason for the construction of the gardens by King Nebuchadnezzar: to satisfy his wife, Queen Amidus, who felt nostalgic for her homeland in Iran. And these gardens included an irrigation system that relied on drawing water by pumps from the Euphrates River. And despite the mention of the gardens in many ancient Greek and Roman writings and novels, it is a fact that was not mentioned in the Babylonian inscriptions, and that is what led many scholars to believe that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are nothing but myths and legends. Babel's Lion. The Lion of Babylon is one of the most famous monuments of the historical city of Babylon. It is a statue of a lion that is a symbol of the city of Babylon. It represents the goddess Ishtar, the goddess of fertility, love, and war. The aim of building this statue was to instill fear in the hearts of enemies. Where the statue consists of the shape of a lion, under which there is a man in a state of complete surrender, built of black basalt stone, and the statue is located on a solid rock base built from the same rock. The Lion of Babylon is located in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar. And 120 paintings of the Lion of Babylon were formed from multicolored tiles and distributed in the northern entrance to Babylon on the walls of the procession street, the Ishtar Gate, and the throne room of Nebuchadnezzar, and these paintings are found today in a number of international museums.